long run labor demand curve. Okay. Okay. Any question on the short run labor demand curve?
No, Professor.
Okay. So all of you know that there's a difference between short run and long run, and the difference is in the fixed factor of production. In the short run, some factors of production are kept constant, they are fixed. You cannot change them in the short run. But in the long run, everything is variable. You can change the factors that were fixed in the short run can also be varied in the long run. So in the long run, remember how did we get the short run labor demand curve? We maximize the firm's profit subject to the fact that the optimal number of workers are being hired. So we analyzed at the margin and figured out that what's the extra benefit of hiring an extra worker, and compared that benefit with the extra cost of hiring that worker, and the firm optimized when marginal revenue benefit gain from that worker is equal to marginal factor cost, right? That gave us the short run labor demand. So optimal L star or optimal level of employment in the short run occurred where marginal revenue product equal to marginal factor cost. But in the long run, it's not so easy, because in the long run, both factors of production are variable. So both labor and capital are variable. So firm will maximize profit now by choosing the optimal number of workers, but at the same time choosing the optimal number of plant or equipment or capital to invest in. So the firm has to decide on two variables at the same times. To understand the long run profit maximization decision of the firm, we have to do analysis with an isoquant, right? I know some of you have heard about this, in your intermediate micro, but this is going to be we are just going to apply that same concept to labor market. So what does the isoquant tell you? Isoquant is a graph that shows all possible of labor and capital that produces the same level of output. So if you want to produce 100 units of output, you can use various combinations of labor and capital, and each time, each of these combinations will always result in the same level of output. Okay, so remember, utility curves and indifference curves. Indifference curves are curves where you consume different quantities of the two goods, but they always give you the same level of happiness or satisfaction. Isoquant is very similar to that concept. You can employ labor and capital in different ratios, right, in different combination, but in each of these combination they will generate the same level of output. There are some properties of isoquants. The isoquants will always be downward sloping. They cannot intercept with each other, so they cannot intersect with each other. The higher isoquants reflect higher level of output, and they're convex to the origin, and they have a slope that is negative of the ratio of the marginal product of capital and labor. Okay, I know there's so many things I have listed over here, but let's go by one by one. Okay, so before going to isocost, let's just look into isoquant a little bit. I need the whiteboard. This is the challenge, right? Like, you know, I'm not so good at computer. Some people are very, like, you know, very skilled at, see, it's not working. Bear with me, okay? This is as challenging.
Professor, you can use Wacom. It would be easy for you to write.
I'm trying to draw. So,
Professor, you can also use the lines.
I'm trying, but like this is not helping. Let me see if I, no, it doesn't give me the option. I have to draw manually.
Don't they have the curved lines?
Okay, this is good enough. All right. Okay, so this is an ISO one. What does it mean? It means that you can employ this amount of labor and this amount of capital, or you can use this amount of labor and this amount of capital.
ক্লাস করতেছিলাম আপনার সবাই ভালো আছেন কি করেন আমি যে সালমান না
Who's this talking?
আমি কে বলেন তো
Excuse me, can you mute yourself? Mohua Khatun, can you please mute yourself? And if you're interested in talking to someone over the phone, please just leave the class. Unbelievable. That's very mean to a professor. Anyways, you guys don't care about me anyways, I know that. Okay, so let's say your output is 100. You can use many combinations. So this huge amount of capital and so few labor, or you can use medium amount of capital and medium amount of labor, or like, you know, little capital but a lot of labor, and each of these combination can generate the same level of output, right? So this is called an isoquant that shows different combinations of labor and capital generating the fixed level of output, right? It has to be downward sloping. The reason is, if you increase, like, you know, one factor of production, so let's say like you are over here and you're increasing, like, you know, your um, labor use. If you increase your labor use, right, if you increase your labor use up to this point, if you increase your labor use up to this point, right, but keep the capital same, then what would happen? Since you're increasing your factor of production, you should be able to generate more output, right? Okay, so that means that you will be moving to a higher isoquant. Okay, so if you keep capital constant and increase your labor like exactly the same amount over here, you should be generating more output. So that means you're going to move to a higher isoquant. Okay, that means if you want to stay at the same level of output, that means you are in the same isoquant as the red one. If you increase labor, you have to reduce capital to maintain the same level of output, right? So that means you move from this point to this point. But if you keep one factor of production constant but increase the other, you will move to a higher isoquant, and that means you cannot stay in the same isoquant, right? So if you stay in the same isoquant, if you increase one factor of production, you have to reduce the other, right? So there is the inverse relationship between the factor of production. That means that the graph has to be downward sloping, and you can see that the slope is like, you know, capital by labor. So this distance of the slope over here is how much, like, you know, the tangent over here is how much capital you are using versus, like, you know, in relationship to the labor. So this basically the slope at this point, right? So the slope at this point, and that slope is this distance divided by this distance, right? So that means because it's a curved line, the slopes are different at each point, and the slope is reflecting the how you are switching between capital and labor, and it depends on at which section of the isoquant you are in. If you're in the steeper part of the isoquant, that means you are willing to sacrifice a lot of capital to increase labor by a little bit, okay? Whereas if you're in the flatter part of the isoquant in this region, then you have to, like, you know, to substitute a little bit of labor, like, you know, to substitute a little bit of capital, you are willing to sacrifice a lot of labor. Like, look at this flatter part of the curve. If you want to increase your capital by a little bit, going from here to here, you are willing to, as a farm, substitute this amount of labor. The reason is, in this situation, you are labor abundant, you have so much labor, so your capital is more valuable to you. So you want to give up, to gain a little bit of capital, you are willing to sacrifice a lot of labor. Whereas over here, you are capital intensive, you have so much capital, to increase labor by a little bit, you are willing to sacrifice a lot of capital. Okay, so how you will sacrifice labor and capital depends on which part of the isoquant you are currently operating. Okay, so this is the isoquant. We first prove that it is downward sloping. Okay, and then if you, the higher isoquants reflect higher level of output. Okay, then the other one we talked about is the isoquants cannot intersect. If they intersect, then the huge problem arises. This is really problematic. Okay, so consider, okay, so consider point A and B, all right? Okay, so now, like, you know, Y1 and Y2 are two different isoquants where output Y2 is greater than Y1 because Y2 is a higher isoquant. If the two isoquants intersect, then we can see that A and B are on isoquant 1, Y1. So that means A and B are producing the same level of output. So different combinations of labor and capital in A and B respectively are generating Y1 level of output. A and C are on isoquant Y2. That means A and C, again, different combinations of labor and capital generating the same level of output Y2. So since A equals to the same output as B and A equals to the same output as C, that implies that B and C are reflecting the same level of output, right? So this means that B and C also produces same level of output. But Y2 is greater than Y1, so B and C cannot be producing the same level of output. That means, like, we can never allow them to intersect, because only if they intersect, this problem arises. If they never intersect, this problem will never arise. So that means the isoquants okay, so the isoquants can never intersect. So what did we learn? We learned that labor and capital, using different combinations, you can produce the same level of output that is reflected by a isoquant. So one isoquant reflects various combinations of labor and capital generating the same level of output. Higher isoquants reflects higher level of output, right? And isoquants can never intersect. It's a downward sloping curve. Okay. So let's okay. So must be downward sloping, cannot, this should be intersect, not intercept. Their higher indicates higher output, are convex to the origin. All right, so this we didn't cover. Have a slope that is negative of the, so this is, these two, like, are very important. So let's go back to, are convex to the origin and have a slope that is negative of the ratio of the marginal productivities. All right. So the reason that it has to be convex to the origin is because, like, how farms will switch between labor and capital. When someone is very labor intensive, a farm that is very labor intensive, right? So to increase labor by a little bit. So let me go to the next slide. It only allows 2 slides, unfortunately. Bear with me, right? I'm not so good at drawing. Let me move to a table. Maybe, like, sitting over here is not helping me. I wanted to save power, but it's okay. If I move to the table, it might improve my performance. All right. Not bad. Okay. So let's say you're over here. To increase labor by a little bit, you're willing to sacrifice this amount of labor. So look at this. You are willing to sacrifice this amount of capital to increase labor by this much. Okay. So in order to increase labor by this much, right, you are willing to sacrifice a lot of capital. Whereas, like, when you are over here in the flatter part of the isoquant, right? It doesn't give, like, all right, now look at the second scenario. Look at the first situation. You are increasing labor by a tiny bit. As a result, you're willing to sacrifice so much capital in order to do so. Look at the second scenario. When you're hitting the flatter part of your isoquant, in order to increase the same amount of labor, you are not willing to sacrifice capital as before, because now you have so little capital. Okay, so that means, like, labor and capital are complements, right? But they, to some extent they are complement. You cannot just completely take it out and replace it completely. Okay, to stay on the same isoquant, to generate the same level of output, right? When you have so much capital, right? If you but you're so little amount of labor, right? So in order to increase a little bit of labor, you are willing to sacrifice a lot of capital without sacrificing output. But when you are in the flatter part of your isoquant, to increase labor by the same amount, because now you are constrained by labor, you are like little bit of capital left, so you are not willing to sacrifice as much, right? This means, this is commonsensical. When I have something in abundant, I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of it, right, in return for something, like, the other product, other factor production that I value. But when I have very little of something, right, then I don't want to I'm not willing to trade at the same ratio as I did before, right? So I'm not going to, like, for the same increase in labor, I'm not willing to trade capital in the same ratio as I did before. The reason is, now I have so few capital left, right? I don't want to give up a lot of it, right? And for only, like, and then my labor gain is not going to be as, like, as big either. And you can see that now, if you want to, like, the farm is actually are willing to substitute a little bit of capital for, in return for so much of labor. Look at the gain in labor, right, to maintain the same level of output. That means when you have so few of something as a farm, right, you do not want to sacrifice it, right, in return for the other commodity. So that is basically commonsensical, and that is reflected by the convex shape of the curve. If your curve was concave, like, the other way around, like this, it's going to be, if your curve was something like this, that is very, it's going to be very strange. It would say that, okay, when you have so little of something, give out all of it for a little gain in the other commodity, which is counterintuitive, right? So that's why these isoquants are going to be convex to the origin. Isoquants can be a like, a straight line, which would mean that no matter how much labor and capital you have, the opportunity cost of labor and capital will always be constant. So you will always give up, like, the same amount of labor for each additional unit of capital, and vice versa, right? When you have a straight line isoquant. Okay, but these concave ones, they are out of the question, because they reflect that when you have so little of something, you are more willing to sacrifice more of it. It doesn't make sense, but this makes more sense, right? When you have so much of something, for a little gain in capital, you're willing to sacrifice a lot of capital. But when you have so few capital, for the same gain in labor, you are not willing to sacrifice at the same rate as before, right? So this is basically the reason that your isoquant is going to be convex to the origin. Okay. All right. The slope part we will talk about, like, this is again, like, just if you just look at, hold on to the last part, like this point we will talk about when we talk about the equilibrium, right? The slope of the isoquant. Let me just move on so that, like, you understand where we are going with this. This is like, it seems like these are all random things that we're talking about, but it will all come into place when we actually do the cost minimization of the farm. Okay. So we talked about isoquant curves. Okay. So this is like, look at this isoquant curve. We have capital on this axis and employment on this axis, and these are isoquant Q0 and Q1. Q1 has higher level of output than Q0. Now look at, like, 2 points X and Y. They are on the same isoquant Q0. So X and Y produce the same level of output. Now, if you move from X to Y, right, by increasing employment or labor by delta E, and also you have to sacrifice your capital by delta K. Otherwise, you will move on to a higher isoquant. So if you want to increase labor, you have to sacrifice capital. The rate at which you sacrifice labor for capital is reflected by the slope. So you're giving up this in order to gain this and maintain the same level of output. So the slope at this point is given by delta K divided by delta E. Okay. So what does that mean? Delta K is what? The change in the marginal change in capital, right? And delta E is telling you the marginal change in employment. So what does this slope tell you, right? Change in capital divided by change in employment. The marginal change in capital divided by the marginal change in employment or marginal change in labor. Okay. So now if we divide it by the same Q, delta Q, right, output, you'll see that this is basically how output changes with respect to capital. So marginal productivity of capital, and this part will be how output changes with respect to employment. So that is marginal productivity of labor. So the slope of the isoquant is nothing but the ratio of the marginal productivities. Okay. Let me explain this in greater detail. Okay. All right, can we write it like this? We are multiplying and divided by the same thing, right? Or we can say All right, can we write it like this? So the slope of the isoquant is, look at this delta k. So slope at this point is this height divided by this, like, rise over run, this bit, right? So the slope at this point is height divided by, like, rise over run, right? So this is the slope, and this slope is delta k divided by delta L, delta k divided by delta k L, and we are multiplying delta k by delta L into, like, the same thing, change in output divided by change in output, right? But very cleverly we can rearrange this into delta y by, excuse me, so we are dividing by the same thing, dividing and multiplying by the same thing, and then cleverly rearranging this into delta y by delta L times divided by delta y by delta k. Now, if you rearrange this, you will see that this will flip, right? So it will be delta k by delta y, and the delta y cancel. So this will again be equal to delta k by delta L. So nothing changes, but look at this thing. This is delta y by delta L. So if you change labor by a little bit, how does your output changes? That is marginal product of labor. And look at this denominator, which is delta y by delta k, which is saying that if you increase capital by a little bit, how does your output changes, which is marginal product of labor. So we can see that the slope of isoquant is the ratio of the marginal products of labor and capital. Okay. So exactly what we said over here is, like, the slope of isoquant, it's downward sloping, it cannot intersect. The higher isoquants reflects higher level of output. It has to be convex to the origin, right? And the slope of the isoquant is the ratio of the marginal product of capital and labor. We are flipping it, so that's why it's the negative of the ratio of the marginal product of labor and capital. Okay, clear so far? Let me just go back to my whiteboard and save it, right? Because if I don't save it, it will go away. Sometimes it plays a joke on you. I don't know what is happening. Now I have lost. It's crazy. Okay. Clear so far about isoquant? Bear with me, right? You will see that it makes sense. I know it seems disjointed right now. Where did isoquant come from all of a sudden? Isoquants are coming because, you see, we are changing both labor and capital in the long run, right? So we need a curve that is going to relate both labor and capital in the production sense and generate some level of output. So that's where the isoquant came in. Okay, and the properties of isoquants are important to figure out the optimal, like, the equilibrium level of employment and capital. Okay, so that's why we defined isoquants, and this is the property of isoquants. They are downward sloping, and their slope reflects the negative of the marginal productivities of capital and labor. All right, and then we defined isocost line. Isocost lines are basically, you understand, iso means same, cost is the cost. So it's a line where cost remains the same. So isocost line is a is a graph that shows all possible combinations of labor and capital that shows the same level of cost. Okay, the cost remains the same across this curve. So if you want this amount of labor and capital or any amount of labor and capital along an isoquant, the cost remains the same. So cost is constant. Okay, so if cost is constant, right, then how do we, like, measure the slope of the isocost curve? The isocost curve, the slope is just basically the ratio of the input prices. W is the wage rate and R is the rental rate of capital. To understand this, let's again go back to our whiteboard. Bear with me, guys. I know it's just a little bit not so. My daughter has opened the door, so the air conditioner, just a second. When she was little, right, we disable all the locks in the house because what if she gets locked, right? So to save her, we basically, like, now to keep her out, we lock the door, but since they're disabled, there's no way to keep her out. So you understand, like, life has these jokes sometimes. All right. So now tell me, if the farm hires L number of workers and employs K number of equipment. Okay, so L is labor and K is capital. Okay, the wage rate is W and the rental rate of capital is K. So labor cost of the farm is, what is the labor cost of the farm?
W into L
Very good. What is the capital cost of the farm?
plus K into R. K into R.
Excellent. So capital cost of it is R times K. The total cost is C equal to WL plus R K. Okay. So this is how the cost function, right? Now we are saying that if you fix cost to a certain constant, let's say, like, we are going to use different amounts of labor and capital, but each of these different combinations of labor and capital will always result to a certain amount of cost. So we are going to fix cost. We say that no matter what, our cost will not exceed this. Okay, like, so if that's the situation, let's say this is one of our one isoquant, and let's say we can have another isoquant. So that means the higher isocost curve, so the blue curves are isocost curve, right? So the higher the isocost curves, right, these lines, that means they reflect higher level of cost. Okay, so if we fix cost at, let's say, C1, right, so in that situation, let's say we are fixing cost at C1 for the first one, right? So the cost is C1, which is fixed. Again, it is equal to WL plus R K. When you have higher cost, that means you have higher levels of labor and capital, obviously, right? So that you understand. So we can just rearrange this is equal to WL equal to C1 minus RK. We do it the other way around. It's okay if you like, I don't want to switch the axis and confuse you. So let's say RK is equal to C1 minus WL. So capital is equal to C1 divided by R minus W by R into L. Okay, so out of which we can see that this line is an isocost line with a cost C1, and we can just rearrange this to be like K is equal to C1 by R minus W by R into L. This C1 by R is the intercept over here. So this is this point is C1 by R. All right. On similar note, this should be C1 by W, and the slope would be minus W by R. The minus sign is redundant because you can see that this is a downward sloping curve, right? So you have capital over here, and you have L over here. Okay, so this is basically how you come to an isocost curve, and you can see that the vertical intercept is C1 by R and the horizontal intercept is C1 by W. And if you divide C1 by R into C1 by W, you get W by R. Or you can just look at the function and you can see that this is the intercept and this is the slope. Okay, so this is the slope of the isocost curve. All right, now let's go back to my isocost line. So we can see that the isocost lines are basically straight lines that reflects different level of cost, right? But along each isocost line, you can employ different amounts of capital and labor, and each of these combination will generate the same level of cost. Higher isocost reflects higher cost outlay. So basically, if you hire more and more workers, right, and more and more employ more and more capital, obviously the cost is going to be higher. So lower the cost, the better off you are. That means you are reducing cost. The higher the isocost curve, that means you are actually spending a lot of money. So if you think of it this way, then you want to figure out that combination of labor and capital that can produce a certain amount of output Q0, but you can produce it at the lowest possible cost, right? So if you are a profit maximizing firm, right, and you want to produce a certain level of output, right, how should you proceed? You can produce output by employing different amounts of capital and labor, but you have to employ that particular combination of labor and capital so that you can reach the lowest possible iso cost. Okay, does it make sense? You want to produce Q0. This is like you want to stay on ISOC 1 Q0, but you want to produce Q0 with the lowest possible cost. That means you want to find that point of Q0 that is tangent to the lowest possible iso-cost curve. So if you go back to the family of iso-cost curve, can be a thousands of iso-cost curves in this XY plane, right? Capital and labor employment, like this x and y axis and x axis plane, there can be so many different iso-cost curves. They don't have to be like, the slope comes from the market rate, right? The reason the slope is W by R, that the firm has no influence over W or the influence over R. So that's why the slope stays constant. Okay, but there can be a series of iso-cost curves. Now you want to impose your iso-quant. So you want to produce a certain level of output, let's say 100. So you want to impose that iso-quant on this series of, right, on this plane of iso-cost curve, and find that particular iso-cost that is tangent to your iso-quant. So your iso-quant is Q. You want to find that particular iso-cost curve that is tangent to your Q. At any other iso-cost curve, they will be intersecting your iso-quant, right? And you would be very happy if you could, go to a lower iso-cost. But then you can, if you move to a lower iso-cost, you cannot produce Q0. Okay, so that doesn't help. And if you can move, you can produce the same Q0 with even higher levels of iso-cost, but that is counterintuitive. Why would you spend more money when you can produce the same output at lower cost? But you cannot go produce Q lower than this iso-cost line, right? So the lowest possible iso-cost is given by this line, this iso-cost line. This is giving you the lowest possible cost to generate Q level of output. And the tangency is saying that you cannot go below this point. At any other iso-cost, either they are intersecting or they are unreachable. Okay, so this is the profit maximizing or cost minimizing combination of labor and capital employment. Now, what happens with this tangency condition? What do we observe? We see that the slope of the iso-quant is equal to the slope of the iso-cost curve. What is the slope of the iso-quant? The slope of the iso-quant, we said that is the ratio of the marginal productivities of capital and labor. And what is the slope of the iso-cost curve? It is the ratio of the input prices minus W by R. And the slope of the iso-quant is, we already know, that is the ratio of the marginal productivity of labor divided by marginal productivity of capital. Okay, so these two ratios, the slope of the iso-quant has to be equal to the slope of the iso-cost curve. Okay, and let's see. Okay, profit maximizing implies cost minimization. The firm chooses the least cost combination of labor and capital, right? It's reaching you want to produce Q0 at the lowest possible iso cost. That means it chooses the least cost, the lowest possible cost combination of labor and capital. Okay, and this least cost choice, the lowest possible cost, is achieved where iso-cost curve is tangent to the iso-quant curve. Okay, so basically, if that's the situation, we see that the marginal rate of substitution equals the price ratio of labor and capital. The marginal rate of substitution is nothing but the slope of the iso-quant curve. Iso-quant curve, the slope of the iso-quant curve is the ratio of the marginal productivities. We already proved, and we also called it marginal rate of substitution because the slope came from how you are substituting between labor and capital, and the slope of the iso-cost is equal to the price ratio of labor and capital. I will explain this last line again, but the first 3 points are you understood, right? So profit maximization implies cost minimization. If you do not minimize cost, there is no way you can maximize profit, right? So they are just flip side of the opposite sides of the same coin. The firm chooses the least cost combination of labor and capital. So the firm, if it wants to maximize profit, it has to choose that particular combination of labor and capital that will give him the same level of output as the lowest possible cost. Okay, so and this point occurs when the isocost curve is tangent to the isoquant curve. Okay, and this last is the two slopes are equal. So this is the equilibrium condition where the slope of the isoquant curve is equal to the slope of the isocost curve. The slope of the isoquant curve is the marginal rate of substitution or the ratio of the marginal productivities of labor and capital. And slope of the isocost curve is the ratio of the prices. Okay, so I'm going to explain the last point in greater detail, but let me see what is over here. So before going into substitution effect and scale effect, let's just explore this a little bit. Okay. Okay. So do you see that we agreed that the slope of the isocost curve is, so let me write it down so that you do not question me again. Slope of isocost is minus W by R. Any question on this? Clear, right? Everyone? And look at the slope of the isoquant. It is telling you, like, what is this delta K by delta L, which is telling you what is the, how you substitute between labor and capital. So the slope of the isoquant, we call it isoquant. We also call this marginal rate of technical substitution. So how you substitute between labor and capital so that your output remains the same, okay, which is equal to marginal product of MTL divided by marginal product of capital. Okay, so we also know this, that slope of the isoquant is marginal rate of technical substitution, which is equal to marginal product of labor equal to marginal product of capital. And we know that slope of the isocost is minus W by R. Okay, so now we analyze the equilibrium condition in greater detail. So L star and K star is the optimal level of optimal combination of labor and capital that will produce Q0 level of output at the lowest possible cost, right? So this is what we have found. And the equilibrium condition So because both of them are downward sloping, the negatives cancel from both sides. So we have MPL by MPK equal to W by R, right? So this is what we have. We can rearrange this is equal to so we can write it like this, right? We just cross multiply. So basically we are bringing W to this side and taking R to the other side, right? Nothing changes. We are maintaining the same. Okay. So we can write it like this. All right. So what does the equilibrium condition says? That per dollar spent on labor will get you the same return as per dollar spent on capital. So this is the least cost combination of labor and capital that ensures that the each dollar you spent on labor gets you the same output as the same each dollar spent on capital. If for some reason you gain more by spending, you get more output by spending on labor, you should spend on labor. And if you continue to hire more and more workers, what will happen to marginal productivity of labor? It will go down. Okay, so that case, like, you know, the gain that you had initially will evaporate, and eventually you will reach equilibrium again. And when you keep on spending more on labor, you are on the same iso cost. Remember, that means you can spend less on capital. When you have less capital, your marginal productivity of capital increases. So basically the two sides become equal again. All right. So no matter what, the equilibrium condition will always ensure that the marginal gain by spending $1 extra on labor is equal to the marginal gain of spending $1 extra on capital, right? So this is the equilibrium condition of minimizing cost when you are generating the profit maximizing level of output Q0. Okay, so the optimal combination of L star and K star, optimal level of labor and optimal level of capital will generate Q0 at the lowest possible cost. So L star is my long run labor demand. A firm will only hire L star number of workers in the long run when it is choosing the optimal combination of labor and capital. Okay, clear everyone what we did today? I'm not going into substitution and scale effect. It will just confuse you a lot. So clear so far? Everyone? Or did I lose you altogether? It's not that hard, is it? Because you have done already intermediate. Is it hard or is it not hard? You have to answer me. Otherwise, how would I know?
It's quite hard, Professor.
It's hard?
Yes.
Professor, whatever you are like a delivery, I think it's okay. We can understand because the sentence is really quite good. We can understand easily.
Okay, good. As long as you understand, but we will repeat as many times as needed, right? Because we want to make sure that like this is clear, because these are foundational stuff, right? If you don't understand these, it will create problems for us in the future. Okay, so what did we, I'm not going to introduce like, you know, scale effect and substitution effect for now. Today's focus is on figuring out this number, right? So all the pain that we are doing is because of this L star. So what do we want to do in the long run? What is the difference between short run and long run? In the short run, capital is kept constant. In the long run, capital is also variable. So in the long run, you cannot choose just the optimal level of labor. You have to choose that combination of labor and capital that is optimal. So you have to choose both of them, optimal level of labor and optimal level of capital. since the farm can vary both of them. So how would the farm choose? So farm has to decide, okay, I want to produce a certain level of output, and I want to produce that output at the lowest possible cost. And that the combination of labor and capital that gives me the lowest possible cost, given that I face the wage rate and the rental rate of capital, right? This is given to me. I have no control over the wage rate or the rental rate of capital. I hire workers and employ capital at these rates, right, that are beyond my control. Given these two rates, how much labor and how much capital should I employ so that I can produce Q0 at the lowest possible cost? That's the problem that we are trying to address. To address this problem, we have to find out our iso-cost curve and my iso-quant curve. What does my iso-quant curve tell me? The iso-quant curve tells us that different amounts of labor and capital generating the same level of output Q0, right? So you can employ various combinations of labor and capital, but along one iso-quant curve, the same output remains the same. So you are employing various combinations of capital and labor generating the same level of output. If you move to a higher level of iso-quant, that means you are moving to a higher level of output, right? If you move along the iso-quant, that is, you are changing your combination of labor and capital. This reflects the slope of the iso-quant. So when you have a lot of capital, you're willing to sacrifice this much capital to gain a little bit of labor. So this is reflecting how, as a farm, you are substituting between capital and labor. So the slope of the iso-quant is telling you the marginal rate of substitution between labor and capital, right? You are sacrificing that amount of labor. So delta K, right, to gain a little bit of labor, delta L, right? So the slope at this particular point is delta K divided by delta L, all right? So, and then we just multiply, cross multiply and do a little bit of manipulation, and we can see that the slope of the iso-quant is nothing but the marginal rate of substitution, or the ratio of the marginal productivities of the factors, marginal productivity of labor divided by marginal productivity of capital. Okay, so iso-quant is basically same output level along a curve, and the slope is equal to marginal rate of technical substitution, and higher iso-quant reflects higher level of labor and capital use, as a result higher level of output. Okay, iso-cost curves are curves that reflect the same level of cost. So you can employ, like, various combinations of labor and capital, but along one iso-cost curve, the cost will remain the same. If you move to a higher iso-cost curve, that means you are having more labor and capital. As a result, your cost is higher. Okay, the slope of the iso-cost curve is the ratio, is the price ratio or the factor price ratio coming from the market. The individual farm has no control over the wage rate, and individual farm has no control over the rental rate of capital. It takes these prices as given, right, and trade between labor and capital at this ratio, right? So if you move along the iso-cost curve, the slope is like, you go from this capital use to another capital use. How are you going to substitute? You're going to substitute at the ratio of W by R. Okay, so now the optimal combination comes where the iso-quant is tangent to the lowest possible iso-cost curve, right? You can go lower than this, but then you cannot achieve Q0. You can achieve Q0 at a higher level of, like, cost, but obviously that if you can minimize cost, why would you incur higher cost, right? So that is that higher cost generating the same level of output can never be optimal. So the optimal combination of labor and capital occurs where iso-quant is tangent to iso-quant. And at the tangency point, what happens? The slopes of the two curves are equal. Okay, the slope of the iso-quant is marginal rate of technical substitution, and slope of the iso-cost is the factor prices, the relative factor prices. So when you equal both of them, you get this condition that MPL divided by W is equal to MPK divided by R. Right? What does that mean? W is a dollar number, like $10 $10 per hour, right? What is rental rate? It's the rate. So again, it's a dollar number. So when you divide by a dollar number, that reflects per dollar. So MPL is how much output you can gain by hiring one extra labor. Okay. So output per dollar spent on labor, right? That's your left hand side. And right hand side is output per dollar spent on capital. Okay. So when your per dollar spent on labor equals your output per dollar spent on capital, you reach the optimal level of output. Okay. So this is basically the optimal rule. And through this, we can achieve the L star and K star. All right. Clear? Okay. I want you to do one thing. Okay. So these steps, right? So I want you to work through them, right? In your own, like, when you study at home, I want you to work through them. Don't just look at the graph. I want you to take this side and equal to this side and do the cross multiplication and come to these numbers, right? Exactly like the way I have it. So that once you start doing it, you'll see that it makes much sense. Again, look at this. What is this slope? Slope is like, delta K by delta L. It's the same thing, right? But in case of the iso cost line, this delta K by delta L equals W by R. And in case of iso quant, delta K by delta L reflects marginal productivity of labor divided by marginal productivity of capital. Okay, so this is like, once you go through it once, right, you'll see that it becomes very easy, right? You don't have to memorize, or you don't have to, like, force yourself to understand. It will just come to you naturally, like, how did we get all of these things? Okay, clear, everyone?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, very good. So I am not going to go like into scale effect and substitution effect. So let me just click this away. All right. So is there any other questions that you have? We have our first exam next week, right? Next Tuesday. I am trying to set up Canvas, right? I've never done it. So tonight, hopefully I can look into it and figure out how to do it. Because the principal's class has their exam on this Tuesday, on 15th. So I have to figure out a way so that I can take the exam online. Okay. So in your case, it will be very similar to theirs. It will be 10 problems. And whatever we can cover this week will be on our syllabus. Most likely we will finish this chapter. So short run and long run labor demand curve. And the other chapter that we did is very elementary stuff, right? Like, the first chapter we did. So that's going to be your syllabus. And like, in your case, it might be multiple choice, or it might be like, where you actually have to go through numbers, right? Figure out the marginal productivity. If I give you an output function and stuff, I will give you practice problems. So you will see, we will practice Sunday, and then on Tuesday we will have the exam. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any question? No? Everyone has access to the Google Drive? Deepali, I added you, so you have to just go and check.
Yes, Professor, I got it.
Okay.
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So email me if you have any concerns, right? And then otherwise I will see you Tuesday. But please read up on this PowerPoint. I'm not sure whether I uploaded all of this, but I will check. Okay. Okay, nothing. I didn't say much. Ria said that our quiz is going to be Tuesday next week, and on Sunday we will practice a lot of problems. Next Sunday we will practice a lot of problems that will be similar to what I asked in the exam. Okay, so that's basically it. So if you guys have any other question, we call it quits today.
Professor,
Yes.
I have a request on behalf of few of my classmates.
Okay.
Because like 5 or 6 of us, we are having HBS online final exam till 22nd. Can we sit for the exam later on? Only the group of people who are taking the exam. Is it possible?
No, because already we switched it, and if you take it, then it's going to be hard. So, but take your chance. Like, if something happens, I'm there. I will see. Like, if your performance is, if you're not satisfied, and if it's really, really like, that you need something, then we will look into it later. But for now, I'm not changing the exam dates. Life is like that. You will have many exams. You have to juggle many hats at the same time. You have to think about your kids' school. You have to think about what food to put on table, your mother-in-law's medicine, and at the same time, your boss, the assignments that your boss gave. So you have to juggle many things in life. So 2 exam is nothing compared to what is coming next. In 2 years from now, all the problems that you will be dealing at the same time, like these 2 exams simultaneously, it's nothing compared to that. Okay, so this is a good
Yes.
training ground for that. All right.
Professor, however, will the exam be concept based or like?
It would be problem based. Okay, so there's no memorization required as long as you understand, right? And if you understand the problems we are doing in Sunday, you will be in very good shape.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Professor.
All right, so let me see, there are 2 chats. Okay, all right, I think I have answered all of that. All right, so I'll see you Tuesday then. You have a good night.
Thank you, Professor.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, Professor.